Good evening and welcome to the May 17th meeting of the Logan City Council. Our opening ceremony this evening is Nicole Bernard. She is a homeless advocate and USU student. I welcome you to the podium.
Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to come and kick off your meeting this evening. My name's Nicole Bernard. I'm originally from Cache Valley. I graduated from Skyview High School back in 2004. My mom's parents lived in North Logan for years, and my dad's parents had lived in Newton, so definitely Cache Valley. My dad was in the military though, so I moved around a lot when I was younger and kind of continued that when I graduated high school. So I moved back to Cache Valley in 2017 and decided to, go back to school, finish my undergrad. And when I moved back, I've always been interested in homeless services and homeless issues. And I have a personal connection to that, which I'll share in just a moment. But when I came back to Cache Valley, I started asking around, got in touch with Lucas over at Bragg and Jess Lucero at the university, and I started attending the Bear River Local Homeless Council meetings just to learn about what's going on, what things are looking like. And I attended those meetings for about a year, and then they restructured the executive committee, and I was nominated to serve as secretary. So I've been serving as the secretary for the Bear River Local Homeless Council for about 2 years now. And then I was studying social work at Utah State University, and I just graduated with my undergrad, like a week ago. And thank you. And then I started my master's program this week, so it was kind of like a sick joke almost, but
you got definitely to take one deep breath.
Yeah. So again, I'm still in social work, and it's just. I'm so grateful because I know I chose something that's just a perfect fit for myself, because I love helping people and advocating for vulnerable members in the community. And so with that, I did my internship last year with Bragg, and so I got to work directly with folks who are experiencing homelessness. I had the opportunity to develop a homeless street outreach program, which basically we have volunteers, two people go out each week together as a team, and they take warm weather items, hygiene kits, and they go and they try to locate folks who might be sleeping in their cars or who might be sitting in a gas station overnight really early in the morning. And through that experience, both doing that myself and listening to volunteers, it was very apparent that there are folks who are in that situation in our county that need help. And it was heartbreaking to me to go out at 5 in the morning and come in contact, and one night, I think it was the night of January 1st, we found 8 people who were sleeping in their cars. One was a family with 2 kids. So there definitely is, it's not as in your face as it is in Salt Lake City. A lot of folks are kind of embarrassed of what they're going through, and they want to hide, and so they try to stay out of the public view as best as possible. But because of those experiences, I saw that there was a need in our community that needed to be addressed, and I tried to think of what I could do. And so I looked at other communities throughout the United States, try to see what they were doing to help folks that were experiencing homelessness in their communities. And I was able to connect with a couple different, there's an executive director of a program in Lane County, Oregon. I've been speaking with a gentleman that runs a similar type of project in Massachusetts and also in Montana. So from those interactions, I put together a project proposal to develop like a temporary warming center, just a place during the winter months when it gets like really cold, freezing temperatures that folks can go and just get respite from the cold and just go and be inside around people, who are there to help support them. And so I put that project proposal together, and as a student at the university, they have it's called the Ivory Prize, and it's funded by a private foundation, and they are trying to encourage student leaders who want to make a difference in the community. So they take proposals, and then they look at those project proposals, and then they choose one, and then they fund that project proposal. So I submitted my project proposal for a temporary warming center, and they chose my project, and it was pretty awesome because there was about 100 submissions. So I was very grateful because it showed that, you know, these folks also realized what an important project this would be and what a need there is in our community. And so because of this award, I will have $10,000 to implement this project. And so I've, you know, put together a nice team that can help me get nonprofit status. And then we're just working on getting the details together on what this is going to look like. And, you know, we're going to start small. And the goal is, again, to just provide just a temporary space during the coldest winter months, just for some overnight hours for folks who have no place to go to come and get warm. Because it would just be a tragedy if, you know, a community member passed away from the cold during the winter here. I know no one wants that. So this is just something that I think will help provide a safety net for folks who really don't have a place to go and can't access services because it's in the middle of the night or on a weekend. So just kind of going back, I mentioned I have a personal connection to homelessness. My grandfather on my dad's side, he was my grandpa who lived in Newton, Utah. He was a butcher actually at the Smiths on 400 North, like back in the late 90s. I remember he would always bring me those those big cookies. But he worked in the meat department, and he ended up having like an accident. He cut his hand really bad, so he had to find another trade, another job. So he actually went back to college when he was 55, Utah State University. He graduated in the social work department, and he was actually the first director of the Children's Justice Center here in Logan. He helped to get it off the ground. He helped to build that building, and he held that role for about 2 years. During that time, he was remodeling his house, and he got injured, so he saw a doctor, and they prescribed opiates. And then it was just kind of the perfect storm. His marriage started to fall apart, and it wasn't a very friendly split. And then also his mental health started to suffer because of the hard work he was doing at the Children's Justice Center, working with children who'd been abused. And so at that time, he started abusing substances, and he did get a DUI, and so he couldn't have his job any longer. He lost his job. And then at that time, the split from his wife was to the point where he couldn't stay at the house. So he was living out of his car, and it was just frustrating because the people that could have provided him shelter, like his son and his other daughter, they lived out of state, so he couldn't leave the state because he was tied for his legal issues from the DUI, so he had to stay. And so he was living out of his car, and it was in middle of February, bitter cold, and he did end up taking his own life. And that has been that's had a huge impact on me. I was in high school at the time. And I just think, what if there would have been a place that had their doors open that he could have gone in the middle of the night, And so I just want to be able to provide that for others. And I know that this is not just an issue that occurs in Logan. I know that a lot of the time it's more visible here because this is the city, this is where most of the resources are located, but there's people, my grandpa, he lived in Newton. I think he was staying in his car in the middle of a field in Newton or something like that, So it's a county issue, and hopefully this project will help just bring more conversation on the issue and maybe get more folks involved and community members engaged so that we can really provide support for those most vulnerable in our community who are experiencing homelessness. So thank you so much for letting me speak. And if you have any questions, I know Amy Anderson has my contact information. Feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to speak with you. And I'm supposed to do the pledge, right? Okay. All right, we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I know that's a hard story to tell. And it means a lot that you have made the choice you've made in your life to support people who are struggling. So thank you. On behalf of whatever I can say thank you on behalf of.
Thanks.
And you're welcome to stay, or you don't have to.
I got lots of homework, so
Okay.
thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Now is the time where we accept the minutes and approve the agenda.
I will make a motion to accept the minutes and approve the agenda for tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, Tom got to it before you did. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Our 2022 regular meeting schedule is the first and third Tuesdays at 5:30. Our next meeting is June 7th. Ooh, June already. The year's halfway over. No. Now we come to the time where questions and comments for the mayor and council are welcome at the podium. Those questions and comments need to be on items that are not otherwise on the agenda. So if you have a comment related to something that is on the agenda, just wait until that time, please. Does anybody have a question or a comment? Please state your name.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Ben Jensen. I'm a resident of Logan. I live out on Menden Road. I'm going to read this just so I don't forget anything. This is relatively small potatoes, but something that's been pretty frustrating for me. On April 16th, I made 2 large piles of branches on the south side of 600 South. As part of the citywide green waste cleanup program on April 18th, the streets department came through and skipped those areas. A fact reflected by them still being there to this day, and it wasn't marked as completed on the city's GIS map either. On May 3rd, I posted on the city Facebook page asking when the city would complete the job they said they would do, and was told they had already done it. I've since emailed and called numerous people in the city, finally ending up with Mr. Hart Wybrow of the Streets Department, who, after initially denying that street had been skipped, has since stopped returning my calls and emails. It is my belief that the city exists to serve its citizens, and I understand this street being accidentally skipped. What I do not understand is why, when presented with evidence that it was skipped and asking for resolution, the city employees have refused responsibility rather than attempting to correct it, nor do I understand why they have stopped returning my phone calls and emails. On a lighter note, I do wish to thank Jed Olson of the Water Division, who was quick and very helpful in responding to an issue I had with the water meter. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll check on that.
Is there anyone else? Please come
And
to
it
the
was
podium.
Ben Jensen, right?
Correct.
Did get your email too.
Is there something I need to sign?
There's a sign-in sheet on the outside, on the table outside. If
Okay.
you would do that, I would appreciate
Can I
it.
do that when I leave? Okay.
Please tell us who you are.
I'm Darren Smith. I came here before the council, I don't know, about a year ago. And I have a great concern, and hopefully some of you can get on the bandwagon, help me out. But I do want to say, how many people come before you knowing full well they're going to go financially in the hole, and they're happy to do it, and they need your help? It's kind of a different scenario. I don't know who knows me and what I do, but I'm a historian. I've written a couple books about Logan. One was, you may have one of them, Logan Reflections, Photographs Then, Now, and In Between, where I would compare old photographs, and I went back to where the original photographer once stood and show how time changed, and then what the significance of what you were seeing. And besides that, I wrote another book on the Logan Temple, produced 2 videos about it, and I've written a lot of articles for the Herald Journal, and also when I was in college for the Cash Citizen. But one of the things that I've done over the years is collect Logan memorabilia. And here's the problem. I'm getting old. And my kids don't like history, okay? So I've been trying to get a museum, Gina knows, and that's kind of iffy what's going on with there. But I went and talked to the library committee yesterday, and I told them what I would like to see. And that is some of the stuff I have, nobody wants. For instance, old bottles, starting from the 1870s of Logan, with some of the merchants with their names embossed on it, up until I've got some Pepsi and Coke bottles from the 1950s, and a bunch of other brand names you probably never heard of, and all of it says Logan, Utah on it. I've got tokens that merchants had, and they're like little round coins. They say good for a 5-cent beer, good for 10 cents in trade. I have one from Ryder Brothers that said good for a soda. I mean, just really cool stuff like this. And I also have collected matchbook covers that cover Logan and parts of Cache Valley. I do collect other things, but my main focus is on Logan. And one of the things I wanted to share with you, and I just don't want this stuff to get lost, is these are postcards dealing with Logan, and I've got another book of these. And this is something you just can't go to Walmart to find. I've been collecting this stuff, and this starts from like 1903. I've been collecting this stuff ever since the 1980s. And the problem is, where's it gonna go? Where's this stuff gonna go? We have two choices. Someone helping me, for me, and I'm gonna donate it, or my kids are gonna get it and sell it to some antique dealers, and it'll be gone. So, this is what some of the things I'd like to propose before the council. I would like to see some money donated to the Logan Library for display cases, and have some of my memorabilia in the display cases. I would also love to see some I can never say it, kiosks that are in the area where the, I don't know, festival area is going to be, where the Emporium is. And can you imagine going there and seeing pictures of what was there in that area starting from like the 1870s, 1880s, and how that area progressed? I've got some of those photographs. And have it explained what the significance of that particular area was through time. So when people go there, they can appreciate what was there. And I guess that's what my bottom line is. I just want people to appreciate what a great place this was. And I can't do it by myself. I'm one of those people that don't have higher up connections. I have more or less connections with the common man. I don't associate with rich people. It's just not me. I mean, I don't mind saying hi, but I just don't associate with the elites. So you'll probably see more of me. But what I'd like to do is down the road see some money appropriated to get some of these things going so my stuff doesn't get lost. And that's what scares me. I don't want it lost. If you had collected for 40 years about a place that you love, in fact, my beginnings actually started here in Logan. You're thinking, how's that possible? My parents met on Main Street, okay? So maybe it was ingrained in me when I was born, who knows? But I would like you folks to help me out so I can go in the hole financially with a smile on my face. And when I'm buried in 6 feet under, wherever my ghost or spirit is, I'm happy.
Happy, that's right.
Okay? And I think a little cockeyed, but that's what's gonna happen. I wanna be happy when I die. And by you folks helping me, it'll make me happy. Okay? So I'm going to be working with the person in special collections. I talked to him at the Logan Library. And hopefully you folks can help me help Logan. So the things I've collected and the stories I've collected. If you want to see some of the stuff, go to Cache Valley Memories on Facebook. You can see some of the stuff I posted. I'm also a photographer. Or Darren Smith's Bridgerland, it's kind of long, Darren Smith's Bridgerland Cache Mementos. Most of the stuff I've posted on Cache Valley Memories is going to be on that. The thing about Cache Valley Memories, it's got a bunch of other people posting stuff, but my other website or Facebook page is solely the stuff I've done. So, in fact, I just did a huge article about the trolley system, the rise and fall of what happened. And that went over pretty big. So, anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you, and you'll probably see more of me. Okay?
Thank you, Darren.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the council at this time? Seeing no one, we'll move now to the mayor's staff reports. Mayor?
I am pleased tonight to present a Certificate of Excellence in Reliability to Logan City Light and Power. And I'll just read the little acknowledgement on the plaque. Logan City Light and Power has significantly exceeded the average for all U.S. electric utilities for reliable electric service. The utility participates in the American Public Power Association's e-reliability tracker service to track its power outages and restoration against national benchmarks. That basically means our power doesn't go off very often, and when it does, it gets turned on. They work on it quickly and get it restored very quickly. So we have Yushi Zhao from the Power Department that is here to accept this award that came to the city, and hopefully they can hang it on the wall somewhere at the Power Department.
Will be displayed.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Well deserved. You guys work hard. Council business. Planning Commission, I was unable to attend, but I know there was one item on the agenda, and that was a new fire station, and I assume it was approved. Yep, Russ has got the thumbs up over there. So the plans for a new fire station, if you look on the Planning Commission website through Community Development, you can see what it's going to look like. And we will be having another budget workshop on Tuesday, May 24th at 5:30 p.m. Please come and join us.
And wear a tie.
I wore my tie.
Giving Mike a hard time. So this is the opportunity we have to talk about what is going to happen in the next budget year and what has happened in the past budget year, and get a sense of where we are, where we're going, and how much it's going to cost. So we'll move now to our action items. Our first action item is a public hearing, budget adjustment. Rich.
2 items to consider tonight. The first is a request to appropriate $11,291 of police overtime reimbursements. The second is similar. It's $14,533 for U.S. Treasury cases worked on by the police department. Also, we wish to appropriate those.
Are there any questions of Rich? This is a public hearing. If there's any member of the public who wishes to speak to this budget adjustment, please come to the podium and state your name. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the council for action.
I'll move acceptance of Resolution 2215.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our second public hearing this evening is a rezone. I'm going to turn the time over to Russ.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Council. Happy to be here tonight. Just a quick overview.
Hey, Rich.
This is a rezone request from Michael Jewell at the intersection of 2nd South and 10th West. It's kind of an L-shaped property. There's multiple properties involved, and it's around 30 acres. The current zoning designation is commercial in the red and commercial service in the pink. The request is mixed use. The future land use plan does designate this entire super block as a mixed use area, with the exception of the public UDOT facility on Highway 30. The area is completely vacant, so no structures. There are a couple of kind of open water pond areas that may need some sort of delineation in the future. So just a quick summary of the mixed-use zone. It allows up to 30 units per acre. There are bonuses available as well with additional commercial offerings. Minimum commercial for a project of this size would be 7,500 square feet. Minimum street connections are 3. Building heights are 58 feet tall, and setbacks are relatively tight. So you get about a 10-foot setback in the front. Typical commercial uses, you'll see office, restaurant, retail, grocery, convenience, things like that. Types of structures are a wide range. You could see multi-story apartments, you could see townhomes, twin homes, you could see commercial office buildings, restaurants, etc. Open space, 20% required, and then parking is 2 per dwelling unit, and then whatever the commercial business is, there's a different parking ratio.
And open space does not include parking, correct?
Correct. Open space does not include parking stalls.
Thank you for your clarification.
Quick bit of history is interesting. The tracks formed a real border on the west side, and for many decades, there wasn't much development to the west. This is in the 60s. You don't see much over there. 80s and 90s, you start to see westward development, mainly in the form of commercial and industrial, but there are some residential areas, especially to the south. Today, the area is almost encircled with development. So just a quick, I guess, scale or context. So a township, the township in range is the way the West was developed. Township is 36 sections. A section is 1 square mile, and a section is 640 acres. This area that you see in orange, the bigger box or the 4 square acre, is a quarter of a section. And so it's 160 acres, this super block. And then just for scale, Logan City in its entirety is 18 square miles. The area that's in question is this area highlighted in yellow, and it's about 30 acres. And then the area in red just indicates the amount of vacant land in this area. There's about 100 acres of vacant land. So about 60 of it's developed. The grid system was not really followed when this was developed in the 80s and 90s. We didn't exact that right of way, and so some of these areas won't be, or they'll be more difficult to make connections. And then obviously with the railroad tracks here, some of these connections are very difficult. We do have a crossing here at 1st South, and a crossing at 2nd South, and a crossing up here at Highway 89. You know, I would anticipate what we call a modified.
SR 30.
Sorry. SR 30. Getting ahead of myself. I'm trying to be quick.
Highway 89.
I would anticipate a modified grid, and I know last time there was discussions on those 3 street connections. And UDOT has already approved this connection, and in the future they will approve this connection because these are considered gridded streets. And so this particular project could get 3, you know, one here, and then, you know, stubbing to the north for a future connection does count. as the minimum 3 connections. Real quick analysis of the actual land use. So this is not zoning, this is what's currently built. The pinkish is industrial, the red is commercial, the yellow is low density, residential, and then the orange would be higher density multifamily. So it's a very mixed area. It's a transition area from the Ellis neighborhood has these historic kind of residential areas east of the tracks. As you get west of the tracks, it transitions to more of a mixed bag. This particular block has storage units, a radio station, UDOT plow facilities, a gas station, a sit-down restaurant, some contractor supply. So it's a pretty mixed bag. But again, there's a very large vacant area here, about 100 acres. And when you talk about mixed use, some of the benefits, and last night at the neighborhood meeting, the big question was, what's the benefit to the neighborhood? What's the benefit to the city? Or what's the benefit to the surrounding area when you talk about mixed use? And in general, the concept, which is difficult to achieve, to be honest, is if you create areas where people can live, work, and play, then it's a more efficient development pattern. They rely less on the car, they can walk to work, they can walk to a grocery store nearby, maybe they work in that same area. And so these can be beneficial to the neighborhood. If you add some of these commercial services, or if you add employment opportunities, they can be beneficial to the neighborhood. The other benefit is a variety of housing type. Ideally, a mixed-use project has a variety of housing type, which allows folks to maybe in a later stage in life move out of a single-family home and move into a condominium, on a 3rd floor with an elevator, and stay in the neighborhood, stay in their social network, or younger professionals. So I think a range of housing types is good for an overall neighborhood, and mixed use can provide that. Doesn't always do that, but it can provide that. And then, your different street typologies. Obviously, you want mixed use areas to be very efficient, very walkable. You want to minimize, parking lots and excessive roads, because that makes it more difficult to get around in those mixed-use areas from a walkability or bikeability. But you need different types. So these upper types are more residential or smaller in scale, and parts of your project or parts of your neighborhood can be designed that way. And then maybe you've got other areas like along these highway interfaces. They're bigger roads, but they're designed and scaled in a way that they interface well. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions at this time?
It's currently zoned commercial. How many? Commercial and
split
commercial
zone.
services. In
Yes.
commercial, how many units could they put in there, residential?
So commercial does allow residential development at 30 units per acre, but there is a couple of limitations, and you basically can only do residential on 2nd, 3rd floors or higher, because the ground floor has to be 100% commercial. So it's vertical mixed use in every building.
Not just on street facing.
Not just on street
Project.
facing. There's lower heights. Commercial is only about 3 stories, so it's about 38 feet. And then the setbacks are a little bit bigger. They're
So 30 units per acre for commercial, 30 for mixed use.
correct. Mixed use does offer a bonus up to 40 if you provide extra commercial. The area that's commercial service does not allow residential. Commercial service is more industrial in nature.
Okay.
And it's 7,500 is the minimum that we put in our mixed use when we redeveloped that a couple of years ago.
Correct. 7,500 square feet minimum
Which is
commercial square footage. And the mixed use is a relatively new zoning district with relatively new regulations.
So give me again a perspective about how many 7,500 square feet is, if you could think of a existing commercial development.
So a lot of your fast food restaurants are around 2,000, 2,500.
This room is
It's
3,000.
like
This room's 3,000.
Yeah. I think the Island Market's just about 2,000.
like 3 credit unions.
Does that help?
Like 2.5 of this room.
I know there was a question about Costco or Target. Those are around 100,000 square feet, those big boxes, or 100,000 plus.
I'd just be curious, like how big Lee's grocery store in Salt Lake, which is in a mixed-use project, is.
I'm not familiar with
Probably
that project, so.
100,000.
No, it's a small store.
It's a small one. They were doing an experiment, but I
Oh,
don't know
that's a
how
different
large
one.
it is either.
It's not necessarily relevant.
Kind of a trial
Yeah.
model. I haven't heard how that works.
We build credit unions a lot, and those are about 2,500, so 3 of those.
Any other questions before I open it to the public? This is a public hearing. Members of the public that wish to speak to this, please come to the podium. Take about 3 minutes. We appreciate it. Tell us your name.
My name is Michael Jewell. I'm the applicant / proponent, I guess. I'd love to answer any questions that you have. With regard to some context, I think you're probably familiar with Envision Utah. Envision Utah is a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to responsible growth in Utah. It publishes, it's called Creating Communities, a Guide to Walkable Centers. And that's kind of our development treatise, I guess, at TRIO. It talks about creating centers. Just to give a little bit of, I guess, the intention here for a little bit of context. Centers, according to their writing, centers are walkable mixed-use locations in a region, city, or neighborhood that provide a variety of amenities and services. Russ talked about a lot of those: residential, commercial, office, recreation. Centers are a Utah tradition. 82% of Utahns prefer communities designed for walking, shorter drives, housing variety. The guide talks about housing and the importance of housing in a center. People living within a center have convenient access to desirable destinations. Russ talked a lot about this. Basically, the benefit of mixed use and having a variety of uses. It does talk about, interestingly, that zoning a space for multiple uses like a mixed use allows property to more easily respond to market demand shifts. This is a quote from the paper. Strictly zoning a space for retail only, for instance, may force commercial streets and districts to decline. Similarly, a rigid requirement of retail on the ground floor of a building may ensure that the ground floor remains vacant. It talks about public space, pedestrian experience, about how walkability is about more than just sidewalks. I'm not sure if you saw, the White House issued a press release yesterday. They released the Housing Supply Action Plan. The plan's policy is to boost supply of housing, to bring home ownership within reach of Americans. It was interesting, according to the press release and Moody's Analytics, rising housing costs account for about 1/3 of current market inflation, which everyone can agree that inflation is the worst. It talks about essentially how we got to where we are. This is an issue that's years in the making. Fewer homes were built in the decade following the Great Recession than in any decade in the last 50 years, constraining housing supply and failing to keep pace with demand and household formation. Moody's Analytics estimates a shortfall in housing supply of more than 1.5 million homes. And then, I guess significantly, one of the most significant issues constraining housing supply, this is from the press release, and production is the lack of available and affordable land, which is in large part driven by state and local land use laws and regulations that limit housing density. Exclusionary land use and zoning policies constrain land use, artificially inflate prices, and limit economic growth. Reducing regulatory barriers to housing production has been a bipartisan cause throughout the country. That's just, I guess, a little bit of the context for what our hope is for this area. We'd like to create a neighborhood center. I know this isn't a design meeting, so I understand the need to understand what the zoning will allow. I've heard some discussion about quote unquote worst case scenarios about 940 apartment buildings or 940 apartment units and 7,500 square feet. We have engaged a site design firm, Urban Design Associates. They designed Daybreak in South Jordan. We flew out one of the designers. She came out, looked at the site. We drove her up and down Center Street. She took pictures of the architecture. We're committed to creating an actual mixed-use center. Our design incorporates 60,000 to 80,000 square feet of commercial, about 300 to 350 apartment units, and about 100 townhomes. I bring up the housing issue because mixed use allows townhomes, whereas the commercial and commercial services don't. This is an opportunity zone, so we're constrained by a few things. We can't sell the raw ground without a huge negative tax consequence, but we need to make some material improvements on the ground in the pretty near future. We have figured out a way that we can offer townhomes for sale rather than for rent. So we have, our housing numbers kind of are baked in there, so we can offer our townhomes for sale. That would be about, our plan is for about 100 townhomes. Our proposed density is 14 units an acre. Again, I understand the need to look at what would be allowed in that zone. Again, what you might call a worst case scenario. I want to bring up that if that's worst, I disagree that that's necessarily worst case scenario. But if we're going to consider worst case scenarios, worst case scenario for how it's currently zoned, if we came in for a design permit tomorrow, we'd be looking at 315 apartment units above ground floor commercial. So you're looking at about 55,000 square feet of commercial with 315 apartment units above, and about 2,000 storage units. I think that's a worst case scenario. It's worse for the area, it's worse for the project. It doesn't incorporate the FLUP, it doesn't incorporate the vision, it doesn't serve the community, but that's what's allowed on the present zoning. So I think it's also incumbent, if we look at worst case scenarios, that we also look at best case scenarios. Because best case scenario with current zoning is just that, 315 apartment units, 55,000 square feet of commercial, and about 2,000 storage units. The commercial zone is just not very flexible. Now, double-edged sword, mixed use is the most flexible zone that there is in Logan. And I get that can be scary for a city. It requires the city to be collaborative with the developer. It requires a certain amount of trust with the developer. Best case scenario in mixed use is exactly what we have, in our opinion. You can argue best, worst, good, bad. But 300 to 350 apartments, 100 townhomes that would be for sale product, that's 14 units an acre. 60,000 to 80,000 square feet of commercial, which would include restaurants. We'd love to put a small grocer there. That's about 25,000 to 30,000 square feet. We did have conversations with a certain retailer that will remain nameless, I guess, that wanted the 100,000 square feet. We didn't think that was right for the area. So if you need to find a reason to trust me, I'm the guy who had to tell his wife that he had a chance to bring a certain retailer into Logan, and said probably not because it didn't fit the vision for our project. Our project includes 2 acres of usable parks, 3 acres of usable green space, and that's in addition to open space requirements. I think that's best case scenario. And if we're again considering what potential use is, that's our plan. And again, I understand that that requires a level of trust and that that can be scary. I think for reasons that the city can trust Trio, again, we can't sell the ground unless we incur a huge tax consequence. We haven't, I think we've tried to be collaborative with the city. We've worked with the planners to figure out what the vision for this mixed-use super block would be. We've made an investment of time and resources. We've hired UDA, we've worked with UDOT, we've done a traffic study that's based on our design, not on that worst case scenario. We're preparing civil work. Most importantly, I think we'll be back. We'll be back to ask for mixed use. We are strong believers in real mixed use projects. I understand that there is a distaste for certain mixed use projects in Logan. I would hope that you don't hold that against us. We have a real vision for what mixed use can be for a community. Mixed use could serve a 2-mile radius in this area. It will serve the west side of Logan. And we're firm believers in mixed use as, I guess, I don't know if intended is the right word, but we're firm believers in an actual mixed use. We'll be back to ask for mixed use again. We've got property in Logan that we feel would be served by a similar project. We're looking at property to the north of this. And if we were engaged in a bait and switch with the city council, then I would expect to be thrown out when we're back to request more mixed use. As that's discretionary with the council. If I stood up here and said, look, here's our plan, and then we built 940 units, then I would expect a tongue lashing at the very least when we get back. That said, we've talked to, at P&Z about voluntarily restricting the property. Mike Desimone said that we can't do it as part of the rezone process. We'd love to. We're willing to. I told P&Z that if we didn't do the project that we said we would, they could tattoo my face. So I present that to you as well.
I would like to see that.
We are, Mike can't prevent me from entering any agreement that I choose. So I think, again, we'd like to lead the way in what mixed use can be. We are a believer in mixed use. We are a believer in helping address the housing shortage and providing value to a community that goes beyond just throwing things in. I know that this project is what the city, well, at least in my collaboration with city staff, this is the type of project that the city had in mind when it created the flow as mixed use. This is the type of project that serves the community. The P&Z Council trusted us to fulfill that vision and recommended a rezone, and we request that the City Council allow us to bring that vision to fruition. Lastly, I know that there are talks to or at least amend the mixed-use zone requirements. So I would say that if that's the case, you could still grant our rezone request and change the mixed-use requirements between now and when we're back for design review. If those changes are going to be in the next 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, we can't get design review in front of P&Z in that amount of time. So if that's the case, if you're looking at amending the mixed-use zone, I still think you can approve the mixed-use rezone. And if our project doesn't qualify for whatever you're changing to, then there are bigger issues. Lastly, if the city council, I guess, just can't get beyond the fact that you're looking at redoing the code, rather than deny our rezone request, I guess I would ask that our rezone request be continued until the code can be changed. But again, I reiterate, I don't think that that's necessary. I think this project fulfills what the purpose of mixed use is. Any questions for me as the proponent here?
Do you all have any questions of him at this point in time? Or should we just go on with the public hearing?
Go on with the vote.
Can we reserve the right to bring him back?
Yeah, I would ask if someone has a concern, or if there are any concerns that get brought up in discussion. I think it's kind of silly sometimes that we can't answer questions. So I would ask, if you have questions, please, I'd love to answer.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this project?
Hi, me again. I'll be brief.
Say
Ben
me.
Jensen.
Thank you.
Logan resident. So I love the idea of a mixed-use development, but that said, there is currently one restaurant within a 1 mile radius of the site, 0 grocery stores, bus service is only hourly for most of the day, on foot the closest park is 15 minutes away, the closest mixed-use trail is half an hour away. I'm not opposed to this rezone, I just worry we're putting the cart before the horse. It doesn't seem like it accomplishes the goals of mixed use by being kind of far from everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Christine Christensen, and I guess I'm not informed with where you think you might be changing mixed use. But from what I am understanding from mixed use is, from talking with many of you last night, was just that mixed use sounds fantastic. But then as soon as you say, yes, it's mixed use, then you kind of lose control, which is what we've seen at the homestead in the Meadows. And that, we're saying, oh yeah, let's have a grocery store, let's have this, make this walkability. Well, I just drove through it today. And none of that is there. And they just say to you, we can't get the retail, we can't do this. And you can't hold them to doing what they promised to do. Now, I hope Trio is way better than that you can trust them and that they are here for the long haul. But I'm just saying there's some serious concerns when you open it up and then they don't have to fulfill what it is, right? And I agree with the affordable housing, and I agree with internal growth. I have kids that are looking for homes. And so I love the idea of having some home ownership. So I think, great, let's do rezone it, but let's rezone it for that kind of service. And anyway, I appreciate you listening. I would like to say that I really feel that you could do a much better job at getting comments from the neighborhood. I think the technology is here. You have all of our addresses in the public cities. We're all on utilities. The police can call me and text me on my phone. And, most of our neighborhood, the Ellis community, and I'm sure the Woodruff community, really had no idea. So as far as public input, I feel like we haven't really made the effort to actually really find out what the neighborhood community thinks. But thanks for letting me have a few minutes.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joshua Molitor, and I'm part of the Ellis District, just recently moved there. I wanted to talk about the homeowner occupancy and what's been going on with these developments and how it ties into this multi-use. A lot of developers have come in and say that they want to, do better for the community. This project's going to serve the community. This is going to going to serve them. I haven't seen that at all. I've seen the community serving them because it's been going in a backwards motion. Right now, the Ellis District is looking at some serious, serious things. I was at the meeting last night, and that was, yeah. But what's happening is we're doing these rezones, we're doing these projects, and then we're making the communities have to come in and deal with them. And they're being forced into doing this. It's not right. It's not what a community is about. Restructuring the city should come first, and then what we can do for the developers, but not developers and then have to force the community to deal with it. That's not the way this is, supposed to go. So, I had more, but I'm going to leave it at that. So.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
I'm Lyle Lundberg, and I am a member of the Ellis community. I would like to echo a lot of what Christine Christensen had brought up as far as mixed use. I want to express my concerns and concerns that a lot of our fellow neighborhood or community members in the Ellis community have regarding the mixed use rezone. We are the ones that are experiencing the negative impact that's going on right now because of the mixed use rezones. The project there off of 2nd North and 6th West is an example of when we went and expressed our concerns before that project was started. Unfortunately, we didn't know about the rezone until after it was rezoned. But we went to the meetings before the project was completed or started and expressed our concerns about where that was going and what the project would be. And the response that we got from council members was that, hey, it's going to be a positive because we're going to have walkability for the residents to shop, live, and work in that community. It's going to be a positive. Well, we haven't seen the positive yet. We've seen all the negative, which is instability, congestion, and the thing that really hurts is to see families that are selling their homes in that area because of that reason, the instability. They don't want to raise a family in a neighborhood that's unstable. And that's what you get when you have high-density homes with people that are only there for a year, maybe 2 years, and then they move on. I want to personally tell you that I know of families that have sold their homes for that very reason, because of that development there on 6th West, and what it meant to them. They didn't want to raise their family in that neighborhood with no stability. And I think I understand mixed use, I understand the advantages to it. I just think we need to be careful on how much we're allowing and how much, at what cost to the community members that live in that neighborhood, at what cost to them do we rezone and allow projects to go in that bring in that negative, have a negative effect, which is instability, congestion, and it really, I think the quality for those neighborhoods is going down. It's struggling anyway because it's an older neighborhood, so those homes are, they're turning into rentals, So the percentage of home ownership in the area is already struggling. And when you rezone it and you bring in high density and subsidized housing, I think you create even a more difficult problem for those communities and for people who want to buy homes in that community. They go elsewhere. So I just caution you to be careful on how you approach these rezones. Thank you.
Thank you, Lyle. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this? Going once, going twice? I'll bring it back to the council. Craig, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions to start us off. We are considering revamping mixed use. We're deep in the discussion, so to speak. We've had a couple of meetings with a group that is working on some changes to mixed use. But it was my understanding that if someone brings a project for a rezone to a zone that is available to them, that they are allowed to use whatever is in place at the time. They are not bound by future changes.
Yeah, so this application, this rezone application will be considered under the rules in place at the time the application is submitted. We could not continue this, get a new mixed-use ordinance in place, and then require that applicant to comply with the new mixed-use ordinance.
Second question, why would it not be, why would a deed restriction not be available?
It certainly wouldn't be available tonight because this is not something that was offered beforehand, at least to the council. We'd have to approve that, be voluntarily offered beforehand before the council approved a rezone. So tonight it's too late
to offer it.
But there could be a deed restriction.
Well, and that's something I'd have to research a little bit and talk with Mike about. He may have some information I don't.
So,
Design review.
Mike, could I ask you to come to the podium and tell us why you made the decision that you made?
Yeah, well, you can't conditionally rezone property, so you have to rezone it based on the merits of the application, the underlying land use, the fluff, things like that. So he can promise all that he wants. He can put a deed restriction on his own property, but then he can also pull it back off. So it's really not a good way to rezone property, just to do it based on the merits of the zone and what the potential range of uses are.
Sure.
So if he had a rezone application with a project that was tagged with it, then it might give you a little more solace in terms of, yeah, we could agree to that zoning based on the project coming through, but even that doesn't guarantee the fact that he would actually execute that project.
Thank you. Are there any other questions that people want to ask or discussion you would like to have?
So we received several emails about this
Yes.
project from people in the Ellis neighborhood. I was not at the Ellis neighborhood meeting last night, but if someone was there and could share perhaps what the comments were made, or I don't know if this was a hot topic there, or...
It was a very hot topic.
But if someone could share what the community's input was, that would be helpful.
Ross, did you sit at the table where they were talking about the rezone?
I did.
Could you, I mean, I can talk about what happened during the regular meeting, but not when we broke out into those sessions. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, I was over in that corner. There were probably a dozen or so folks that came by, expressed some of the concerns we've heard about tonight. You know, the density, the height, the setback, traffic congestion, turnover, lack of compatibility with the neighborhood. You know, Ellis neighborhood, people think, okay, historic homes, you know, you get the square blocks, the big streets with the trees, and now you've got these newer apartment complexes that don't fit from a design compatibility standpoint. The tracks are obviously a challenge. Those are some of the comments I heard.
I would also say it doesn't fit emotionally.
Okay.
There's no emotional compatibility, because I believe that it has been challenging to see that much density dropped onto the neighborhood, dropped into the neighborhood. So I don't want Ellis to turn out like Bridger, because they have a lot of rental housing. Anyway, I would say that most people were very concerned. They did not have particularly positive things to say about the project that has been completed that is mixed use. They feel that it is not accessible, that it's doesn't have the walkability, it doesn't have a community feel to it, that it's just more of a apartments and a road and parking lot. So that's sort of summing it up.
How many, were there quite a few, 5 comments, 10 comments?
I would say, well, we had sort of a limited comment period. The way that Sue structured the meeting last night was the mayor started, and then there was a presentation that Paul did with respect to 4th North and 6th West, which was a big concern for them. There were questions, I did a small talking, how you talk to council. There were about 60, 70?
78, I think.
78 people there. They asked a lot of questions with respect to that rezone, also with respect to 4th North. And so it was a divided meeting in that regard, because they were covering 3 important topics to the neighborhood. So I would say more than a third of the questions that were asked had related to that rezone. But then they divided up into groups and everybody could go to a table and talk specifically about their concerns with respect to either 4th North or the sidewalk on 6th West or the rezone on 200 South.
So Russ, remind me what services are available in commercial services that it's zoned at the moment.
So what's not allowed in commercial service anymore are storage units. So those are no longer allowed. And there was a project that was approved here, but I believe that's since expired. Commercial service, you'll typically see like a contractor, supply, warehouse. It's like I said, it's kind of a hybrid between industrial and commercial. So it allows things like gas stations and, quick lube types of things, limited amount of warehouse or kind of manufacturing.
Does it allow hotels and restaurants and grocery stores?
I better pull out my chart real quick.
Sorry.
For that specific thing.
Because, to the south we have NR6. It's like, are we looking at mixed use as being a buffer zone, so it's not just straight up commercial across the street from these houses?
So the code does have some built-in design buffering, so you have to do a bigger setback when you're next to NR6. We actually ran into some of this just across 10th West going west in this area here. Similar type of scenario. But the uses aren't limited, but there are some design bufferings. There might be some incompatibilities when you talk about auto repair and stuff like that. And when we go through planning commission, we try to be sensitive of that and cluster open space or shrubs or landscaping to even help that buffering even more. There's also height transitions, so you can't have something super tall right next to the single family homes. It has to step up.
It's 35 feet at the 25-foot setback.
Because I'm looking at, if I lived on Sunstone, I'd much rather have townhomes across the street than a car repair shop.
No.
But that's just me.
Grocery stores are not permitted in the CS zone. Okay. They are in the commercial zone. So, any other questions on these?
When the flood was put together, how long ago was that? The future land use?
2008 was the original adoption. We actually updated it
a year
about
ago.
2-3 years ago. Yeah, 2020. We went through and updated the fluff.
And mixed use was put in that place, right?
Correct, all but the UDOT facility.
So,
But that was a change.
Sorry, what?
That was a change, was it not?
This was updated about 2 years ago. The previous one had a more of a split. It was mixed use and commercial, if I remember correctly.
was there a specific vision of what that could look like with all that mixed use in place?
Well, not a super detailed or small scale vision, but again, the general idea that if you build or redevelop and build more efficiently in a more compact manner, then you can relieve some of the pressure on the surrounding more periphery areas of town, and hopefully create more walkable, bikeable developments that rely less on the car, because the car, it creates traffic, and then you have to build big parking lots and those kind of things.
When the plan was put together, was the community involved in modifying that plan, or?
Yes, there were several workshops, public hearings.
And was there enough comment against doing that in the future land use plan?
I don't recall specific opposition to mixed use in this area during those workshops and public hearings. Again, the future land use plan is a vision plan. It's not a regulatory document. It just says, hey, at some point in time in the future, it may be 5 years, it may be 35 years. This might be a good use for this area.
Thank you.
So, I don't know to whom this, whether it's Craig or you or Mike. Michael has an amazing plan. It's a really cool concept. It's much less dense than our mixed use could be. But we sit in a spot where we are straddling two worlds, because we're straddling the world of, yes, that's a really nice project, and that would be cool. But if they can't build that project, they can sell that property, and we're gonna get another dense.
Could get another
dense project. That would not be what we had hoped for. So we're stuck to me, we're stuck a little bit in the middle. And I don't know how we can mitigate that stuckness.
And I will say, when the second north, 6 west project came through, the original rezone was with a completely different developer.
Yep.
Who came in with wonderful
A completely
plans,
different idea.
and everything changed. And so I will admit I am feeling a little gun shy about that, because it really did, I think we entered into that thinking,
wow, we're going to get a cool
get
project.
a great project, and we changed the zone, and then that project did not occur. So I'm feeling a little vulnerable, I'll put it that way.
That's always a possibility
Yeah.
with any rezone application. Developers can come in and request rezone and design review at the same time. Some choose not to do that because that requires some upfront investment for design, layout, things like that, and they maybe want to take a more incremental step, but it is possible to do everything at once under our system.
If we were to change mixed use, and we were in the process of talking about it and altering it somehow, what would be Michael's, sorry, I should probably call you Mr. Jewell in this in this environment, but what are his options? He can either...
Well, right now, he's in the track to be considered under the regulations that are in place right now.
Right.
And if we're in process and get a new mixed zone or mixed-use zone in place, he could withdraw his application and reapply and be considered under that new
Okay,
regulation.
but the only other alternative we have is an up or down right now. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm not aware of another mechanism.
So that's where my 1 foot's here and my 1 foot's here. And the fence is right in the middle.
And Russ is correct. I mean, generally, most rezone considerations will have that project tailored behind, and you'll be thinking about those things, but you've got to rezone for all permitted uses of that zone.
Correct. Correct.
But you can't continue it as was suggested and then go to the new mixed use.
Yeah, we definitely could not require this project that's already currently in the pipeline to comply with the new ordinance.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question, Greg? Is that?
You may come to the microphone and ask a question.
I guess my question to that is, at what point in a rezone request, so for the rest of eternity, regardless of what happens to the mixed-use zone, when we come to design approval to P&Z, do we say we're grandfathered into the requirements at the time of rezone?
You'll be considered on the rules that are in place when you've applied, yeah.
So when we've applied for a rezone or when we applied for design approval?
When you applied for the rezone.
So
So see what
so
happens.
every zone is approved.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Russ.
For a rezone application?
If you come in with a project, you'll be considered under the.
So that's what I mean.
Project.
Right now, the rezone, when we're not here with a project. So by the time we come with a project, the mixed-use zone could be changed.
But
right?
you will still,
But we wouldn't grandfather in the requirements of the zone at the time of rezone, only at the time of design approval, is
No.
my understanding of the code.
no.
So it's not,
No,
because
I'm
every
real
time you rezone,
Yeah, because I thought it was whatever.
every time you'd rezone, you'd be grandfathering in. You'd have to go back, every time you brought a project, you'd be going back to, well, we were made commercial in 1968, so we should be.
When we're talking about rezone, we're talking about uses in the rezone. You'd be limited to those uses on the development standards in place at the time of the application.
Yeah, he doesn't have any vested rights with the rezone that goes to a project. So whenever a project comes in, whatever rules are in place at the time will be applied to that project.
Right.
So how you act tonight, so say you approved it and he applies in 3 months, whatever we have on the books in 3 months is what he'll have to adhere to.
Is the mixed-use requirements he would need to follow for his design.
If we change it in 3 months,
Right,
then
if we change it.
apply to that, so.
But they could also withdraw the project and then come back under new requirements, right?
Yeah, he could choose to withdraw it and then come back at a later date. You could also use him as a guinea pig to help craft whatever changes you want, to help as he crafts his project so that both of them kind of go concurrently. It's a way to do it as well.
How do you feel as a guinea pig?
We would love to be a guinea pig. We would love to show what mixed use can be.
I know
And I
a
think
really
that's
good
for me.
tattoo artist too, so.
We would love
Just-
to
there's
lead
such a-
the way on mixed use.
Yeah, it's just such a disconnect for me right now between what our mixed-use zone is and what I think most of us would hope the vision would be. And so I'm really uncomfortable with the mixed use right now.
Yeah, me too.
And that's kind of where I'm sitting on this, is just this internal dissonance of.
But from my experience,
But-
if we change it before they put a plan in, then they'll have to comply to that.
Right,
But if you deny the rezone, then the project goes away.
Yeah.
You can make changes and then they can come back, correct?
of course they can come back.
I mean, under.
Or if they
Under new.
withdrew it.
We've got to make some material improvements to the ground. We have some time restrictions because it's an opportunity zone, which also constrains our ability to sell. So yeah, it's never a now or never, but we've got to start putting something in the ground or we're going to lose our opportunity zone benefits. So yeah, time is of the essence, I guess.
Can you dig a hole?
We don't know what to dig for.
They don't have an
right?
entitlement to do it.
So we would love to dig a hole, but we can't. To Russ's point, we'd love to come in with design at the same time. We'd love to start digging holes. But just as a point of reference, I don't bring this up to throw out wild numbers. I was shocked at these numbers. We brought our project on 3rd South and 1st West to design approval recently. We brought the apartments that are associated with Logan Gateway to design approval recently. Our design fees combined for those two buildings were about $500,000. So to get to the point where we're bringing design with a rezone. We can't find a capital partner that says, you know, so let's spend $1 million plus designing something on the hope that we get a rezone. We have to take it incrementally, or we'll just have to build what we can. Otherwise, yeah, we're just in a spot where we've sunk a legitimate, serious amount of time and resources creating the project. And I understand, I really do, being gun shy based on what happened on the other project. And I just can't, I don't know how more strongly to convey that there are situations in place here that will prevent that.
Would it be at all helpful to collaborate with the staff and whoever else to create a mixed-use zone that does serve the needs of both parties?
We would love to do that. We would love to take the lead in mixed use and what mixed use can be. And I'd tell you that, again, developers, I get that developers can be the worst. I understand that. And everything, developers, you're so used to hearing one thing and then developers go do whatever they want. So I could say if we can get the rezone approved and then we won't bring a design until we can work with the city to figure that out. We're not trying to game the system here. We're not trying to hurry and get design or rezone, hurry and bring a design in the next 6 weeks. That's not humanly feasible. We're happy to take the lead here. We're happy to show Logan, the community, what mixed use can be. We're happy to work with the city to figure out what makes the most sense. I think we've got resources to do that.
Would you be willing to work with the neighborhood to make that happen too?
Absolutely.
You say you want to work with the city. Well, I'm saying, well, let's work with the neighborhood so that it turns into something they're happy with as well too.
Absolutely. We've got projects other places in the valley where we've reduced density on the basis of neighborhood interaction, where we've moved from significant densities to creating, single-family home buffers to avoid some of the issues with density. I disagree. Strongly about some of the negative stereotyping of density. I disagree with it from a moral standpoint, but I understand the emotional reaction to it. So yes, we're more than happy to work with the community.
Awesome.
One thing I think as a council, though, we do need to be cognizant of is that we don't want to create a mixed-use zone for a very specific piece of land. Whatever the mixed-use zone looks like is going to have to be something that could be applicable anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And our FLUP does have quite a bit of mixed use in it. So,
But there are principles that we
Right.
could arrive at.
right, so it can't be super directive for, well, we want Michael to build this, so therefore this is what the mixed use zone is going to look like, where that might not work in the next project. It wouldn't have worked on 3rd South and 1st West because it's a smaller parcel. So, it could involve, do we need different mixed use plans for different types of, different square footage
or for the size of the project,
or the street it's on. Like if it's on a busy street, if it's on 10th West, there's one guideline. If it's on, the middle of a neighborhood, more, are they different? I mean, there's just so many competing factors at play.
And I don't mean that our mixed use should become the code, but we're happy to work with the city and to figure out what the code looks like to encourage good mixed use. Because at the end of the day, Envision Utah, any good site planner is going to talk about the need for flexibility. And there's always going to be a little bit of fear in that from a city council, because it's nice if it's a commercial zone, that worst case and best case are separated by a hair. So there's always going to need to be some flexibility in mixed use, and that's the purpose of mixed use. It allows it to shift according to market demands. But I think we can create, not duplicating this everywhere, but create some constraints that would make mixed use successful in different settings.
I'd like to compliment the chair for actually having a dialogue. A lot of times we don't have dialogues, and I think this has been productive. I will say that there's like two or more types of mixed use. There's a half a block, not half a block, half an acre could be a mixed use. And here we have 31 acres. And I want to say this, is that we don't often get a collection of land, an assemblage of land that you can do something with. Usually it's like we had in other places, it's just putting a bunch of housing on it. Here, I compliment again the developer for having a consultant who has expertise in smart planning. Nobody else has done that. And so we have an opportunity to do something that's good. The frustration is, as you had mentioned, you can't do the project now. And, I was frustrated as an architect. We wanted to do the project. The zoning had to come first. The thing that are positive here is Planning Commission liked it, the FLUP liked it. They have a consultant team that is smart on this thing. And I think we have an opportunity with the assemblage of this land to do something very good. But perhaps as Amy and you have said.
The other side of that rail.
Yeah.
Is?
They could do what the zone allows.
Well, okay, well, let's work on something.
And it doesn't ever come back before us.
Let's be positive to try to work on something to make it good. It won't be an extension of Ellis. I mean, we're not going to just do that. It would be nice to have something like we did in another project that we all talked about, where we put townhomes on the facing of First East. And that was helpful to the neighborhood. That was a compromise that came along. And they were more pleased with it, I think.
But it wasn't the zone though. I mean, that was.
No, but I'm saying through the dialogue.
Yeah. So I guess the question I would have too is like, what's a realistic timeline for us for revamping, recreating, coming up with a mixed-use zone that makes sense? Because if we rezone today, it doesn't come back to us. Anything that the proponent wants to do, and that never comes back to us from a design perspective.
Right.
The only thing would be is if we have the mixed use, that would come, and then those guidelines would apply for a project that they have yet to apply for. So, people who know me know I like a little bit of control. So that part of it is a little bit,
Give us a timeline.
What would be the timeline? Is 4 months the reasonable timeline that a mixed use? Could it be 6 weeks? Could it? I'm reluctant to rezone if we're talking it's going to take us 6 months to come up with a new mixed use zone. That makes me really, really uncomfortable.
I'm thinking it would be weeks. And the thing about a code amendment is you submit an application and that starts the vesting process. When you go through that code amendment process, the planning commission may say, hey, we like everything but this little section right here. And go back to the drawing board and tweak that, continue it for 2 weeks or whatever. And that's the case sometimes when you do code amendments. But what's key though is just when that amendment is submitted, then any project after that has to follow those new code amendment rules.
So maybe what we can do is postpone the decision on this for 2 weeks. See whether we can get language enough that it's in the pipeline so that we know that the rezone, whatever project came after that, would have to follow whatever we come up with. So we would, since, unless we're breaking ground in the next, so that we would know where we were headed when we said yes to the mixed use.
You wouldn't have a complete.
Because there would be no project potential.
If we're going to include the neighborhood and the applicant, it might be more than 2 weeks.
Right, but what I'm saying is, would that, because you just said, Mike, that we say, we grant you mixed use the first of the month. If you don't come, if you had a project with that mixed use, you get to build whatever that project was based on the rules that day. But if you don't bring a project till the 31st of the month, and in between, we have begun to change mixed use, you have to go with whatever we've come up with. Is that correct?
Yes. So we'll have, we can have an application in for a code amendment within the next planning commission cycle, so 2 weeks from yesterday. So we'll have enough language to get it going, to start that process, start workshopping it, hearing it with the PC. We can invite the neighborhood to participate, whoever else. Mr. Jewell?
That would, to me, maybe mitigate because there's no project, that would get us closer to, we're going to have new rules.
Yeah.
And would that be acceptable to you?
Yeah, I'd love it. I'd love to tell my partners that I pulled this off.
Well, you just pulled the string a little.
Yeah, no, I think we want to do it right? So whatever we can do to give the city some comfort that we're actually going to fulfill the project that we designed. If it takes another 2 weeks, it takes another 2 weeks, and I think we're happy to collaborate with the city or however that looks, show up to the public hearing and give our 2 cents. I think that we're willing to. We want to be collaborative.
Well, and I'm mindful of Christine Christensen's comments too, that, we need to
Go back to the neighborhood,
Yeah,
I
the
think.
neighborhood needs, and I will say that people who wrote today, the vast majority were really concerned about what the potential of mixed use was as it exists now. And so I think that it would be important to include them in those conversations to see, like you were saying, Tom, if there were townhomes here, would that make you feel differently? If there was different requirements on the commercial, if there was this, what is it going to take to make not just the Ellis neighborhood, but the Bridger or the,
Well, it's responding to neighbors.
Yeah.
Wherever a project like this goes in.
I would say this is an important enough thing to come up with a model that says we work together to make something good. So you be a little flexible. You dig in, we try to make something good. Let's, instead of regretting what we did, let's say we're proud of something we did.
So I'd make a motion, we postpone the decision on, I don't know my agenda.
Can we call it the beginning plan?
Ordinance 22-11 to the meeting on June 7th.
Just for clarity, what's the difference between postponing and continuing?
Or continuing, is that the word? Sorry, continue.
Okay.
So it's, motion has been put forward to continue this rezone until the next meeting, June 7th. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion regarding the motion? Nope. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much for being a part of the process. We appreciate
Don't
it.
like kicking the can down the road. It's like
Thanks for allowing the dialogue.
That's okay. We'll move now to another rezone. Tanya?
This is much more simple. I think.
Is it?
I think.
Are you sure about that?
Well, so here, this is another rezone, the West Point subdivision, or the West Point subdivision rezone is the name of the project. The proponent has provided to you the 2 items that you asked for. One is a plat that meets the zoning, the code, and, sorry, the code, not the zoning. And the other is the deed restriction. So they provided the plat for the MR12 zone, and it works. They found the open space and so forth. And the deed restriction was provided. I believe you got a copy of it, and,
Yes.
and Craig can speak to that if that's where you want to go with this. I can also do a little summary of the project if you'd like, but if you don't need that, then we can move on to the 2 items.
So Craig, part of what we discussed was the rezone and then a zone back. How does that work out?
So I'll run through the basic parameters of the rezone.
Thank you.
In the first paragraph, your owner agrees not to increase density. This restriction is going to run with the land, be binding on future owners. And the restriction is effective on the day that the city approves the rezone, and it will be recorded the next business day. So although the property is upzoned to MR20, the deed restriction prevents the density from being increased. And then the owner will then apply for a down zone when either the plat is denied or the plat is recorded. So let's see, any other restriction terminates when the city denies a rezone, so they won't be able to subdivide, or the city approves the down zone to MR12. So there wouldn't be any concerns with density because it's now rezoned back down to MR12. So you'll have either the deed restriction in place or the down zone back to MR12.
Okay. Everybody clear on that?
So the owner has satisfaction of being able to subdivide.
Yep.
So they can sell. And the neighborhood is not being hurt by having a upzone. And we all get back to where we were.
So we will see another down zone.
Yes.
Correct.
And
assuming this is approved, then you'd see a down zone.
okay.
All right.
This is not a public hearing, but go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, this is the plat that will be presented to Planning Commission in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we won't see it again.
Correct.
We'll just see the down
The
zone.
down zone.
Does anybody have any heartburn, questions, comments? Would anybody would like to propose a resolution?
I'll move acceptance of ordinance 2206.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Does anybody have any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Great resolution.
Thank you.
Great resolution. Thank you for everyone. who made that happen.
Thanks for sitting through this whole long thing for like 2 seconds.
Thank you for.
That's what Jeremy gets paid to do. Come on.
It's nice to find a resolution that works for everyone, so. Doesn't happen all the time, so.
He gets paid to
I like that.
Okay, item D, public hearing. Mike.
Okay, got Rivergate annexation. It's ordinance 22-12. Let's see, this will give you some orientation. 10th west, right through here, 2nd north up here. Our really good looking landfill, it'll soon be a nice park right there. 6th south, this is the property right in here. Proposed annexation, 30 acres. You can see our current city boundary is in red. It's adjacent to Logan City. It'll include the right-of-way as well as the right-of-way on 19th West.
That's going to make a really,
30 acres.
Pardon me?
the red is our current city, so we're going to have like a little
Yeah, we're going to have a little weird spot right here, and the applicant had reached out to these folks, and they did not want to annex in. So our general policy is that we don't force annexation, so it'll happen when they're ready to come in.
And we don't do islands either, right?
Pardon me?
We don't do islands.
Yeah, no islands or
Can't.
peninsulas. But again, in some cases where you've got just people don't want to annex for whatever reason, they don't want to install a sewer line. We just, for whatever reason, that's fine. This existing owner owns this property over here as well, so it's Visionary Home Products, so you'll see development for both sites come in. The current fluff is detached residential, just similar to what's across the street to the south.
It's not 30 acres of mixed use.
It's not 30 acres of mixed use. Might be appropriate out there. We can define what mixed use means. Current zoning is in R6 around.
I better double check just in case.
Proposed zoning is in R6 to match what's to the south. And that's a copy of the plat. So, happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions regarding this annexation?
NR6.
NR6.
Yeah.
Did we go through the new process where Planning Commission is aware of this?
They're aware of it, but no, this predates the current draft of proposed annexation policy plan, so no.
So, but you did go over it with them just maybe?
They're aware of
didn't?
this one, and then the next one that's on the docket, they're aware of those coming through.
Okay, thank you. I don't want them to go, who zoned it this? Again.
Well, it shows up in our monthly report. And they
Okay,
should see
somebody
that.
better read it.
I know, but sometimes we need to be a little more proactive.
Reminded, yeah, reminded.
This is a public hearing. If there are any members of the public who wish to speak to this, please come forward, state your name, and tell us what you'd like to say. Nobody's getting up. Oh, good.
Surprise, I'm back.
Good, no.
But I actually have a hat on this time. This time I stand as the president, Ben Jensen, and I stand as the president of the Logan River Trails HOA, which is for that neighborhood directly south and a little bit west of that. We have 53 homes, so I represent 53 residents. While we'll be sad to see this farmland gone, we understand that developing it is probably inevitable, and we greatly appreciate that it's being proposed to be NR6. That's what we are. We think that's a good fit. However, we do have some concerns that are more related to infrastructure than this development itself that worry us. First is traffic. We do not believe that the current 600 South and 1900 West roads are safe for the existing levels of traffic, much for an extra 30 acres of medium density housing. Neither of those roads has a shoulder of any kind, and both of them have steep drop-offs, freeway access points, and neither has a shared left turn lane either. Additionally, 600 South is designated as a bike route, and as a cyclist, I can vouch that cars do not care that it is a bike route. They frequently pass me with very insufficient clearance and at excessive speeds. Both roads desperately need to be expanded to at least have shoulders before even more growth occurs out here, and it sounds like there's even more coming to the east. If any of you are aware, most of 600 South has been unpassable for about 2 months because they're installing some water main to finally finish our division. And that means there's only one access point to our whole neighborhood, which is problematic, to say the least. My next concern is the school situation. I don't know why it shook out the way it did. Our neighborhood somehow belongs to the Cache School District, which is a fact that very few of our residents, even fewer real estate agents, and even the school district themselves don't really understand. Woodruff Elementary is a mile away, yet all of our kids are bused 5 miles out to Mendon for elementary school, or 10 miles out to South Cache.
That's a state issue.
Yeah.
It's problematic.
We cannot do anything about that.
I understand. I wish that something would happen, is my
But
point.
isn't there school choice anyway, so you really kind of...
There is, but school choice isn't guaranteed, right? If you're at capacity. So anyway, I'd just like to say it's problematic and it's frustrating that we pay our tax dollars to Cache School District instead of Logan. And again, the school districts themselves don't understand it.
Yes.
Next, I know the city has plans for a neighborhood park north of this, but as it stands, the nearest public park is 2 miles away. Access to the Logan River Trail is 3 miles. We would like to see the new park and trail extensions to the planned 600 South Kayak Park expedited to serve both ours and this new community, because we're currently pretty grossly underserved. Additionally, the closest CBTD bus stop is a mile away from this or our property. One last thing, and I think this is kind of a pipe dream, but despite CenturyLink having fiber optic wire buried on our HOA property, there's only one broadband internet service provider to our neighborhood. And if the city could somehow leverage this with our service agreements to get CenturyLink to modernize, that would be fantastic. Thank you for your time.
It's a long list.
Yeah, it is.
I thought about this a lot.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Until
But
it becomes Logan
we
City.
have been frustrated by school district boundaries forever because they were drawn years and years ago, never to be changed. And as cities have grown and changed, especially Logan, Logan was defined as this, and everything else was county. And we went like this, and it's still this, and everything else is county. And so that's something that we would be thrilled if you could figure out a way to get the state to change it. Thrilled. So Mike, when a development comes in, what will happen? Is there a way to require them to do traffic studies and road improvements?
That'll be based on the city engineer to determine if that's warranted or not. improvements that are necessary to service this project we've installed. We generally don't build new roads first. It generally follows new development. As they work their way out, they'll build their incremental components of those.
So they don't have to do anything to the road necessarily?
They'll have to install their frontage improvements that are required for that.
Okay.
So anything that's above and beyond that, generally your impact fees going to support those types of projects, whether it's a signal somewhere or an improvement somewhere else. But otherwise, it'll be on the city's responsibility to upgrade that road if it's necessary for this as well as other projects that come down the pipeline.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to speak to this? Bring it back to the council.
I would move acceptance of ordinance 22-12.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are 30 acres bigger.
More piece of the pie to
Last
the
but,
state to change our school district.
I know. Last but not least, certification of South Logan Partners, LLC annexation petition. Craig, are you going to talk about that, or?
This is similar to the other one we had a couple of meetings ago. This is the process where they've submitted a petition for annexation. The city has the opportunity to accept or deny, and then the city recorder is tasked in state code with the obligation to certify whether it meets certain legal requirements with signatures and a map and things like that.
Do we have a picture of where this is?
It's in your packet, I believe.
No, I don't think
I don't have
there's a
it
picture
here.
in it.
It's, you know where Cox Honey is?
Yes.
That's one of the small parcels of it. It's the vacant piece just on Logan's side of that. It includes all of the right-of-way that's left over along the state highway, 8th West, High Clone. So there's a little chunk of ground there that's still unincorporated Cache County. And this was precipitated by the guy who was buying the vacant piece of property. There's a Purser warehouse next to it, and then it's Cox Honey. So they're all coming in together, and then all the right-of-ways coming in with it. So that little island will disappear. And the idea is it'll become commercial because that's what's around commercial or industrial.
And we don't have to do anything. We just have to know we're doing it.
That's right. City recorder just let you know that this is certified.
Okay, thank you. We'll move now to our workshop items. Rich, you're on again.
3 items to discuss. The first is a reimbursement request for cases that our police department has worked for the U.S. Department of Justice, $1,753. The next 2 are requests to appropriate reserves, $33,000 for the golf course, about half for the increased credit card fees, which means we're collecting more revenue than we anticipated. That's a good thing. And then the other half is for fuel and fertilizer also at the golf course. That finishes out this fiscal year, and we do have revenues to support all of those, and that's a good thing.
Good.
And then the last item, of course, is the largest, $1.54 million additional funds to finish out this year for purchase power for our electric fund. Again, it is supported by increased revenues, but we have increased costs. So this will get us through fiscal year 22. Fiscal year 23, starting on July 1, we anticipate that the surcharge will protect us and will kick in more than likely in July and continue on until we adjust rates a little later that year whenever the rate study is complete and is presented to council and council agrees.
Okay. Any questions?
So this is IPP and the UAMs.
And UAM's pool.
It's just the pool, whatever, wherever we buy it, which is a variety.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move now. Amanda, you're on.
Okay. This is the funding recommendation for the Cdbg 2022 Annual Action Plan. We have $500,000 estimated. We're still waiting for final award amount. plus an additional $193,216.79 from leftover from completed projects. The goals are to invest 50% to infrastructure, 30% to community needs, and 20% to administration and planning. And here's a list of the proposed projects and their funding amounts, and I'll go through each one individually. Here's an estimate of where we'll be at the end of this year, goal-wise, in comparison to the 5-year goal. First project is the 100 South and Main Sidewalk. Funding amount is $50,000 to install sidewalk, curb gutter, and 2 ADA ramps. And there's the overhead of the project. Next is the West Willow Park sidewalks. The funding is $42,000 to complete the 2017 accessibility improvement project for a total of 3,400 feet of sidewalk, curb and gutter, and 6 ADA ramps. There's overhead of that one.
That's a lot of sidewalk.
Yeah, it is a lot of sidewalk.
Next is 300 South, 500 East sidewalk. This is one of the safe routes to school. Funding is $117,000 to install sidewalk, curb and gutter, and 3 new ADA ramps. Map of that one.
More sidewalk.
That's a big one.
Part of a block.
And next is the 100 East Poplar Avenue pedestrian crossing. Funding is $35,000 to install sidewalk, 2 ADA ramps, 2 crossing beacons, and this also will connect the Pioneer Park Trail to the Garf Gardens and Merlin Olsen Park.
It's going to surprise a lot of people when they come flying over that hill.
Yeah, I think they've got a
There's a
warning
lighting
beacon
thing.
kind of planned before you go up the hill. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just, I walk that way a lot.
Ask a question. I was looking at this deck. Why wouldn't you make it connecting from trail to trail? It looks like it's perpendicular.
I don't know if that's
But you
exact.
you need to cross at a designated, like, street corner for public works standards, so.
Well, I can see on the east side, but on the west side, to make it connect to that other trail.
Well, it'd have to go at an angle.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That would be really dangerous.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, they don't like that.
Because
Most aren't planning
Cars
on that,
stopping
I
in
mean, that's very
different
atypical, so.
Well, the top of the dugway is a diagonal also, so I don't know. It's just a question. I know you do that with vehicles because it can't see, basically, but people will take the diagonal anyways.
Design stand.
Next is the 900 North, 100 West sidewalk. This one is adjacent to Bridger Park. Funding amount is $120,000 to install sidewalk, curb, gutter, and 5 ADA ramps. There's the overhead of that one.
That's where the dog veterinarian is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay.
Next.
Or animal veterinarian, I guess.
Bridgerland animal.
It's Bridgerland.
it's a cat veterinarian.
It's a cat veterinarian too.
And a horse veterinarian. There's always horses out there.
Yeah, they have horse.
My daughter worked there.
The ADA ramp updates, the funding is $66,378 to install and or upgrade ADA ramps on 13 corners. This is a receiver project, so any additional or leftover funding can go to this project up to $200,000. And then the new one we added was the pedestrian crossing beacons project. Funding is $133,216.97 to install flashing crossing beacons throughout the city. They'll have to be in eligible LMI areas. And then this one is also a receiver project. that will also go up to 200,000.
And one of them is going to be on 2nd East.
Yes.
Thank you. And 7th North.
And then we have one community needs project. It's a public facility for the Whittier Center, exterior paint. The funding is $29,622 to paint exterior wood window frames and eaves. And then $100,000 for program admin and planning for one full-time employee, and then any Cdbg community planning. That's it. Any questions?
Nope, I'm really glad we're doing those beacons because I think they're going to be, I think it'll help safety a lot on 2nd East especially, so.
Yeah, some of them are things we've had in the bike pedestrian master plan for a long time, but just haven't had funding for. So again, if council approves this, I think it will be, you know,
As long as we do one on 2nd East, I'll be happy.
Yes, Madam
Yes.
Chairman.
That's all I'm going to say.
Chairperson.
Okay, any other questions? Thanks, Amanda.
You're welcome.
When are they starting on 60s and some of these other projects?
The sidewalks on 60s
Yeah.
that were funded last year, hopefully fairly soon. I know they have it. They need to get that money spent. Do you have any idea, Amanda, on when? I mean, those last few blocks along 600 East that need to be done are challenging ones, but.
Yeah, they're the hard ones.
Are they bidding that out or doing it in-house, or do you know, Mike? I don't know. Yeah. But they tell me this summer. Should be done this summer, so
Good.
unless they change their mind on that,
We'll run into a roadblock.
yeah, hopefully we'll get that done.
We've got a good pond.
Are there any other considerations this evening?